Hey everyone, it is Shannon, and I am here to talk about A Quiet Place for 31 Days of Horror 2019, and I was really looking forward to watching this one. It's one of the more recent releases. Yeah, it came out last year, 2018. Very widely and highly enjoyed, loved, recommended. Yeah, hadn't heard a good word, hadn't heard a bad word. Hadn't heard, haha, a bad word about it. Okay, so this one is directed by John Krasinski, who of course is Jim from The Office. It also stars John Krasinski, Emily Blunt, Millicent Simmonds, Noah Jupe and Cade Woodward. This, as I mentioned already, came out in 2018. It is definitely a horror movie, but I would also classify it as a drama, as well as a thriller, as well as a survivalist, and we're going into subgenres. I ended up giving this one an 8 out of 10 or a 4 out of 5, but I haven't given it a heart, and I'm still trying to figure out why that is. So maybe I will figure that out while I do this review. So here we go. A Quiet Place, Emily Blunt there. Most of the posters just have her, and they really remind me of the redux of Funny Games with Naomi Watts. But I like this one because it has, you know, more of the cast in it. I feel a bit complicated about this one. It's one that I would definitely say if you're a horror completist or enthusiast and you haven't seen it, just go ahead and watch it. It's definitely a quality film, well worth seeing, and it's better. I went into this knowing almost nothing other than you need to be quiet. Survival depends on being quiet, and I think that's actually a good way to go into it. But to discuss some of the things about the film that I feel a little like I think I need to go into some detail, so I probably will get into spoilers pretty quickly, but not quite just yet. So, or can I? I don't know. To be honest, I don't know how much I can say about this movie without going into the details. Okay, atmospherically, excellent. Absolutely excellent. Really good with the tension in terms of horror, like just generally the tension in this film, the need to not make a sound, and the weight that it bears on everyone is formidable. Like, so the atmosphere, bang on, 10 out of 10 without a question. Now, sometimes there were some things that they did, and there are some instances where they move so slowly and so carefully that this, like, it would be really easy to do memes and make fun of this movie. I'm not going to do that, but it just felt like sometimes it felt just like a little slow. Like after a certain amount of time, I think that you might move a bit faster, but I can also understand the need not to. And of course, you don't hold yourself at 100% tension all of the time, which creates a really good rhythm in a film of tension versus, you know, false sense of security and stuff like that. But I just meant like there were some things that felt like a little drawn out, so that was a bit surprising. But I didn't think it was bad. I felt like, oh, like, you know, I guess I was impatient, but maybe that's intentional because, you know, you would be, but you gotta learn to live with that because it's really important to stay quiet. So that was good. The acting was excellent across the board, without question. Everyone in this did such a good job. I did not recognize Emily Blunt with blonde hair, though. Like, I was just like, wow, she looks so familiar. Who's that? It's like, duh, it's Emily Blunt. Like, oh my gosh, I can't believe that. Like, I can't believe I didn't recognize her. Anyway, of course, Jim Krasinski is really good, as well as are the entire cast. Yeah, and I guess so. Yeah, it was better for me. It was better not to know anything. I thought the art direction was also really good. It was really clever at storytelling, given the fact that there's very little noise or sound or words because of the situation, of the need to stay quiet, and also that's a bit of an interpretation on my part, which I'll get into more in the spoiler zone, because I think I do need to go there for this one. But yeah, I just, you know, I think it's a good. I also think that this one, although it's super, super scary, it's not so gory that it wouldn't be, that I think the audience is limited to horror fans. I think the tension level and the situation are intriguing, and so this, I think, can branch out to non-horror fans as well as horror fans. But if you are a die-hard horror fan, it's definitely one that you just need to see. Like, it just needs to go on the list. It totally earns its place, and it's well worth seeing. So I think I'm going to save it there for for the non-spoilery stuff, and then I'm going to go into the details of some of the film. Not so much in terms of okay, so if you're hanging out, I'm going to say spoilers, and it's not so much going to be about the story as it is about character and some complicated stuff that I felt about it. So yeah, so stick around for that if you're interested. And I may accidentally talk about the story. Well, I will talk about the story too. But anyway, so here we go into the land of the spoiler zone. So one of the challenges that I had with this film was that, okay, so they have to stay quiet. And one of the things that also is the case with this story is that their daughter is deaf. So everyone in the family speaks ASL because the daughter is deaf. And so that, I don't think that that's a bad choice or anything like that. I'm not saying that. And the actress or the actor who played the daughter is also deaf. And apparently, according to IMDb trivia, John Krasinski spoke to her a lot about the choices that her character made in terms of, what felt right. So that is really awesome in terms of representation. Totally on board for that. Totally on board for that. My challenge with this is that, and I don't know how I feel about it, so take this with a grain of salt and some compassion, because I'm trying to figure out how I feel about it. Because often when we see a story of a person with a differentness, be it a disability or a language barrier, and deafness is considered a language barrier, is that when we see them in a mainstream story, often their disability/ability or differentness is what turns the tide and changes things in terms of the story. Now, initially I was kind of like, oh, well, it's really convenient that, they all speak ASL, so they know how to be quiet. But then I was thinking, wow, if there was a global epidemic, and if being noisy meant you were going to die, then having a way to communicate without speaking would definitely give you a longer survival rate, but mostly for the case for the hearing people, because the hearing people can hear sound, whereas the deaf character cannot hear sound, which comes into play in the story in a rather challenging way. But, so she, of course she understands the concept of sound, but she can't hear sound. So I feel complicated about that. I don't feel complicated about that. What I feel complicated about is the depiction and the turning point of the story, because, what happens is that what they do for her deafness, like the attempt to help her with her deafness, ends up being something that can give them an advantage. And I've seen this in many episodes. There is a Star Trek Deep Space Nine episode where there is a woman who her race lives in low gravity, and that's for me the clearest depiction, because when she's in regular gravity, her body is so confined, but there's a turning point situation where, because she can function in low gravity, turns the story, and there you go. That's for me the clearest depiction of this kind of thing. But often it happens with a guest star in a TV series, or in film as well. So when it's great, and it actually is really great to have representation in film, but sometimes I find it hard when the the differentness is what turns the tide. So would it be realistic in that situation? Actually, yes, it would make more sense that this family would survive longer knowing that they have ASL, and yes, they ended up getting an advantage because of the work that her father did to try and create something so that she could hear, and that, of course, when you follow the thought process, of course, something that is very sensitive to sound and can pick up sound very well is also very, as I already said, sensitive to sound. So that can give an advantage. It's not just, so, and if you think a bit further, just, is every advantage a disadvantage when you bring it out? But then when you pair it to people's abilities, then it feels uncomfortable, and therefore I felt uncomfortable. So, and I'm really I think it's really awesome that how committed he was to have the actor who portrays the character to be deaf and to be involved in the story, and I think that's wonderful. And I say actor, not actress, because I call all actors actors, and in case someone's going to try and call me out on that, I just say it for everyone because it is a gender neutral term. So just talking about, you know, these kinds of things can bring that kind of stuff out. So I felt complicated about this one, which is why it doesn't get the heart from me. But I do think it was very, very well done. I just generally feel complicated about those kinds of depictions, and, you know, and that's where it is, and that's where it stands. And so this one, although it met the expectation, and not, I didn't quite, it wasn't, so my complicatedness about that clouds whether or not it gets a heart, because the hearts are based on whether I like the film or not. So I need to process that a bit more before I come down firm on that one. But gotta say, it's pretty impressive for a horror movie to bring out all of these kinds of conversations. So bonus for that. And since we're already in spoiler zones, and so if you, now I'm going to go into one content piece about the film, if you're just staying along for the conversation about character and representation and depiction and that kind of stuff, you know, the one thing that I think that is pretty cool is that it is getting a sequel. Apparently, a sequel is in the works. You know, John Krasinski is going to direct yet again, at least as according to IMDb. So yeah, so that's pretty exciting, and I thought that it was well done. And the acting was great, especially by Emily Blunt, because she does a lot of the acting. But I felt like there was a couple things that felt a little unresolved. No, they didn't feel unresolved. They just took a while for the resolution to come through, because there was some big heartbreak stuff and character stuff, but I think that they dealt with that well as well, and very clever with all of how they set up their space and stuff in terms of survivability and warnings, and how to convert, not just speak without speaking aloud, but give signals and defense systems and all that kind of stuff. That was really, really great. Like, it was really clever. It was really smart. I still feel complicated about some of the character stuff. So there you go. Those are my complicated thoughts on A Quiet Place. I know it was quite a winner. A lot of people really, really love this one, and I totally see what they're getting at. But for me, the experience felt a little bit different, which is totally valid. So there we go. There is a complicated review to A Quiet Place.